Hey, welcome to another installment of Be Your Own Boss. I'm your host, Davey Gamble. We're to discuss a person's life and career and what they have got them to this point. Quickly, before we get to the interview, if you're liking the value of this video, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps more people find this content. If you're interested in hearing more people's experience in becoming their own boss, be sure to subscribe and tap the bell. Don't miss out what's coming next. Our guest today is someone I've known for over 5 years and is the founder of High Sky Connect, promoting hydrogen and aviation and beyond. Miss Danielle McLean and
Pronounced McLean,
Claim.
Scottish.
So no
Yes.
problem. Greetings and welcome, Danielle. It's we've known each other for a while, so the things I want to discuss is kind of your background, how you got into engineering, what drove you into engineering, and kind of how you got to there at that point. And you kind of get your background for the audience, and we can go from there.
Okay, well, put your seatbelts on, everyone. Buckle up because my background is not typical at all. So I'll start by saying I went back to college in my late 30s. I graduated as an engineer after I was 40. And so what did I do before that? I need to write a book. Let's see, I'll try to give it to you in sort of a condensed short format. I don't know if I'm capable of doing that, but let's see. So I was raised very evangelical in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I we had a big family. My parents, I love my parents and I very much appreciate the values that they instilled in me, but I struggled with well, that person shouldn't die or be punished by God because they haven't met Jesus. I really struggled with that early. Like I can remember like 10 years old thinking that. And so that just kind of put me on this path to questioning everything, which did and still drives my parents crazy. um, but that's what made me who I am. And I've just always kind of been a person that when there's something I don't understand, I want to understand more. And if the answer isn't there, then I'm going to look somewhere else. If you tell me this is the way it is because it's the way it is, I'm immediately bored and I try to dig and I just keep looking and looking and looking. So having that neurodivergent side of myself, which I'm very much on the spectrum, um, which I didn't know until later in life as well, uh, led me to some interesting crowds of people that I had never been around in my life before. Not the best of crowds. Because our lives were so sheltered in Tulsa, we had never been around criminals or, the church that we went to, my parents were deacons. It was just like a big family and kind of cultish, not quite cult, but close. But we all knew each other and we were always safe. So when I was 17, 18, I just thought, I could figure this thing out on my own. My older sister was valedictorian. I'm the second of six. She was valedictorian, got a full ride scholarship to ORU, and I did the extreme opposite. I had a baby. I was involved in a lot of messed up stuff that I'm not proud of. Not even going to go into that today, but I will say that it involves a criminal record. It involves trafficking. Um, I've made videos about it in the past. I'm not going to talk about that today. And then things just got really bad over through my 20s, and really in my 30s is when I just started asking and thinking like there has to be more, and still wanting to figure things out for myself, but also looking at my parents like who also went to college in their 30s and 40s as well, and got their bachelor's degrees. So just started kind of looking at like reinventing myself. So I enrolled in school. I had taken a couple of years prior. So I went back to school. I had some of the basics done. And this was my thinking. I literally Googled what makes the most money with the least amount of school. That was my search. And my answers, there was obviously doctor, but that was a long one. And then there was architect and aerospace engineering. And I'm like, aerospace engineering? Well, hold on a second. My brother's an aerospace engineer. My grandpa's an automotive engineer. And I've been around engineering and I really love space and I really love aviation. So, all right, we'll try that. And I thought I was bad at math. I didn't think I was going to go anywhere. So that led me to going to college, having a lot of breakdowns and breakthroughs. It took, let's see, it took 4 years total, but mind you, I had some classes already done. It usually takes people about 5 years.
So did
Um,
you talk to your brother or your going into engineering, or did you just make this decision on your own?
yeah, this is a great question. So I did talk to my grandfather. My grandfather, Arthur F. McLean, is, I would say, the greatest influence on my life. I know grandparents aren't supposed to have favorites, and he never told me this, but I always felt like I was his favorite. He was the kind of grandpa that was always quizzing you, and he's from Bristol, England, so I can do a pretty fierce British accent. That's also for another day. But in his accent, he was always giving us puzzles, and there were, we were all really close in age, so he would, give us these really difficult math problems that sometimes you'd have to think about for 3 or 4 days. They got harder as we got older. And I was just determined to be the first one to solve every single one of them. And I just wouldn't give up, where my siblings might give up after a couple hours. I just wouldn't let it go for days. And that really was the foundation that my grandfather's relationship was built on. He was a source of encouragement when I did want to. We weren't very close when I was going through my troubled 20s and 30s. But um, he was so open and kind in a way that parents just, you traumatize your parents too much for them to be able to do. But as a grandparent, they can just be that really soft kind of landing pad for what I needed at that time.
Well,
And so,
they see you for you are, right? They
yeah,
want to see if they can challenge you to, whereas your parents don't see are too much with you on a daily basis.
yeah. Well, and my parents, they do see who I am emotionally. They do.
Yeah,
But I don't think they understand me always. My grandfather understands me. Like if something's bothering me, it's usually because I don't understand. I'm trying to figure something out. That's the thing that will give me the most anxiety. So yeah, I would. And then my brother, well, and my dad's also an engineer. I totally left that out. Sorry, he's a software engineer. Sorry, Dad, if you hear this. Which he became an engineer. I don't know why I forgot that at the beginning. He became, and I was thinking more mechanical stuff because my brother aerospace, my grandfather automotive, but my dad became a software engineer, and I went to his graduation with my daughter. So, she got to watch her granddad graduate with a bunch of kids at Oklahoma State University, and he was, in his 40s. So that story really, really started to inspire me as I approached 40. I didn't talk to my dad and my brother that much about it just because I had kind of probably felt a little inferior and that like I wanted to catch up more. But I didn't want them to judge me. Where I never felt like that with my grandfather. He was always, and not that my brother or dad ever did anything to make me feel bad. It was just kind of an imposter syndrome sort of thing.
right, right.
Yeah.
Question yourself, right? Question
Yeah.
yourself whether or not you're up their standards. So
Yeah.
yeah.
hmm
So you go through college, and then how did you get to where you're at?
So, I was in my 30s, like I said, and so I do my associates. I do physics, uh, mathematics, and engineering associates. And then right after that, so summer between like sophomore and junior year, there was a job fair, and well, I went into that. I felt like I've always been very competitive, but also I was seeing myself compared. I can blend pretty good with younger people. It's getting a little bit harder now because I'm getting some grades you can't really see on here. But at that time, it was 12 years ago, I could blend in with the kids in their 20s pretty good, pretty well. Um, but I knew that, I was at least a decade or more older than them, and I'm entering the workforce. When I'm thinking when they're my age, they're going to have at least a decade of experience. So I felt like I had to make up for lost time, and I was going to do that. So I was going to every career counselor. Where's this job fair? Where's this? These are my skills. This is what I like. Can you introduce me? I was watching YouTube videos like how to succeed in college, make friends with your professors, so I'm doing like every single, and this is before YouTube was like so oversaturated and you could like really find some good advice. So I did all those things. Went into a job fair, was shaking in my boots, and and all I had was an associate's, got an internship at the first job fair, at a company that just happened to be a couple of blocks from my house. They paid really well, so I was able to do that, and then transferred to Oklahoma State Stillwater, and then was doing a dual aero and mechanical degree. And then there was another job fair, I think, during my junior year, and I practiced so much. I went to one booth and I pitched myself like my life depended on it. And they said, and I didn't even know this was the thing. They said they said we don't usually do this, but we have one just in case we need to. But you're getting the golden ticket. And I was like, I'm going to Hollywood, and they're like, well, you're going to Wichita if you want to. So that's how I became part of Spirit Aerosystems, and it was really cool because it was like this letter. It was an offer letter that will pay for your school, we'll give you a stipend, move to Wichita. You can finish your school there. We'll pay for you to move, live, and you're going to work and pretty much pick your schedule and do what you want to do at work. And then if we like you, we'll keep you on. So I did that. And then if they, anyway, then of course, when it was the conversation of will they keep me on, everybody was telling me like they don't really keep, because I was still considered like an intern, although they treat their interns really well there. I'll say they don't really hire. They called it what was the word they used? I can't think of it. It starts with a C. It's very obvious. I'm just totally spacing, but you're not considered like an official employee yet, but it's a step up from an intern, a co-op. Yeah, I think they call it a co-op. And they're like, they've done that like to like not very many students, like hardly any. And I'm like, well, who? How did they do it? I want to do it. I've moved my life to Wichita. I'm not going back. Like, this is what I'm doing. And then I followed the things, I did the things, and I got another offer. So by the time I graduated, I already had a nice salary lined up. And I definitely wanted to catch up. So that's kind of a long answer to your question, but I was really determined. I was really determined.
And then once you got into your career, what led you to being at High Sky? I mean,
Womp
High Sky.
womp. Womp womp. So it was all exciting until this moment, right?
Yes,
So
it
now
was
I've
like
got,
you're on the move, right? You're on the
yeah.
move. You're making all the right steps, and then all of a
hmm
sudden, what?
So I'm like, I'm about to be building rockets and all this. I'm so excited. And I got my dream job. I had everything that I ever wanted. And boy, I really felt depressed. For one thing, if you can't tell, I moved past, my brain goes in multiple dimensions. And the legacy aerospace industry, and many of you can relate, is lots of paperwork, hardly any math and technology, and just, I mean, there were people on my team that didn't even know how to put a formula in Excel. And so I did a lot of the work, which I didn't mind just because I would get bored. And I would get done with my work fast, and then my teammates would be like, hey, you're making us look bad. And they were comfortable. I don't want to speak ill. I have had some really great mentors. Shout out Alwa, best mentor, and Lily. Lily and Alwa, you too. You two are my rock there. Who also both left. And Lily started a startup with her husband, which ended up becoming very successful. And they've invested in a bunch of things in Wichita. She was my manager. She helped me get the co-op. Her and Alwa helped me do the co-op. So anyway, but it was a bit of a letdown. I had everything, but I was just so freaking bored. And then the really pivot time was in 28 and 2019 when the two Boeings went down. One was Ethiopia. I forget where the other
So,
one was at.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
they're both in Africa, I think, if I
Yeah,
remember
they
correctly.
are. And so for those of you that don't know, where I worked, it was a tier one supplier, which just means we just made all of the Boeing aircraft, the structure. Okay, I've been on those exact aircraft that went down. We did not build the software for that aircraft. That was done in Seattle or wherever, but it wasn't done in Wichita. But we did build the fuselage. And so, that was our bread and butter, was selling the 737. So when all of those were grounded, we're all furloughed. At that time, I was also, because I was bored and I want to keep climbing, I was doing my master's in aerospace, and I really was starting to learn about just getting really digging my feet into like sustainability, efficiency, um, not so much from a like environmental, from like a woo woo hippie type way. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I can go there too, but just from like why are we being so wasteful? Like, why do we only think about this time frame of when we're doing stuff? So I really wanted to know, and also being in manufacturing, I've seen some things. I've seen some things. Manufacturing and legacy aerospace is yucky.
Well, I mean,
And
I'll point out some things here for a minute. I mean, I think that's what drew us to each other. I, I was at Boeing, which aerospace, Spirit Aerospace was Boeing one time. Now it's
yeah,
Boeing again.
Spear Aero Systems. I know. I
System
just learned that it's now. Which anyway,
back to
we're
being
not going to get into
Boeing,
that
and yeah, we
conversation.
can
But
go into
I
that
thought,
conversation.
yeah,
But being a cog in a wheel as an engineer is not very entertaining. It's a career that has been working well for the major OEMs for the last 100
hmm
years.
hmm
But when you get to folks, like you or like me, that starts to question a lot of things, asking questions, a lot of times, they're not giving you the leeway of doing what you could be doing.
hmm
And so, kind of that's the kind of age old questions is, do you want to be just the guy who does the bolts,
yeah,
who's doing the forging for bolts and making sure, the forgings are doing what they're supposed to be doing, or doing the design for the forging or the bracket that
yeah,
holds the forging onto the aircraft. It's
yeah,
very tedious
yeah,
and it's not very fulfilling. And I think that's what drove me, and it seems like it's what drove you to basically go nuts. I mean,
exactly.
it's very tedious unless you're willing to just do menial work, which never appeased to me. I always try to move to different projects as quickly as I could.
Especially, yeah, especially if you're a problem solver by nature, and there are problems that corporate may not want solved, and you accidentally find stuff like this. The Challenger comes to mind. And engineers found that they weren't trying to cause problems. They just found that this O-ring situation is going to cause us some issues. We need to delay the flight, the launch, but
Shuttle, right?
the executives and had people to answer to, they didn't want to, and we see what happened there. So it was almost like I felt like I was in corporate America. I felt like I was treated like I was breaking the rules when I was trying to be, when I was not trying to be, when I was being a good engineer. And because I had come out of such a toxic, not everything about my 20s was bad. I have a beautiful daughter and a beautiful relationship, and I did make some really good choices, but I made a lot of bad ones as well. But I had been around criminals, and I knew what the streets, so to speak, looked like. And you hear this in movies and stuff, but it was so different in corporate America to see that. I was like, oh, this is the same thing. Okay, I get it. White collar, blue collar. I get it now. I get it. Um, what I had learned from my 20s and 30s was that even if I saw something that was like a little bit sus, because I was so naive and sheltered growing up, I wouldn't say anything because I thought I was just too sheltered to understand. So I would let things go on that maybe didn't seem like on the up and up. Now that I'm in my 30s and 40s and I'm in industry, you got a little wisdom now in your 40s, and I'm like, no, that is
That's not right.
illegal.
Right. Right.
That's not what I learned in college, and I'm going to be the biggest goody two shoes all of a sudden. That is, people can die. Like, I'm not doing that. And then, then they're all like, but you go out in the shop and you talk to the technicians. Well, that would be real honest with you. Sometimes I used to wish I was a tech and not an engineer because I loved how honest they were. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
so
that's tribal knowledge. I mean, that's when I first got into the industry, it was shop guys know a lot more things that were going
way
on.
more
The
than the
designers
engineers,
just
way
didn't
more.
have a clue
They know where the
how,
bodies are hidden,
you know, I mean,
so to speak. And
there's
so
a big,
so that yeah,
yeah.
so when those were grounded, those 737s were grounded, um were furloughed. I'm doing my master's in sustainable aviation, and so mind you, I'm not working because I'm at home all day and I'm doing night school. So during the day, what am I doing? I'm watching the hearings and I'm watching the families go to Congress, and I'm making, them tell the CEO of Boeing to turn around and face them, and to see that, and just to have a lot of time to kind of think about my experience there, and just to hear the overall kind of vibe in general was, I felt like, didn't resonate with my values. And so I started thinking then, I want to do something different. I want to do something different. And so I proved to myself that I could do this. If I could do this and I changed my life this much, well, I can do anything. And it was true. But I'll tell you, out of everything I told you, entrepreneurship was hands down the hardest thing. It still is. I've just gotten much better at taking rejection. So that's the
Well, I
hardest
mean,
thing.
uh, there's there's a surprising. I mean, I'll tell you a tidbit, and I won't give away names and stuff. But I felt like I was better emotionally. Talk about E cubed. I was a better emotionally E cubed when I got my warn notice back in
Remind
2014.
me again about EQ because it's foggy. It's been that was when we
Yeah,
first started talking.
your emotionally quotient. So it's how you deal with things and how you respond. It's not necessarily do you take bad news, but how do you respond to bad news?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So it's so I was in the room. It had just been like a day when I got the warn notice that I was being
Mm-hmm.
laid off. And I got extensions, another 3 months of extensions and stuff to look for something internal.
Mm-hmm.
But my manager was taken back at how well I was dealing with the situation, and it's kind of like you got to. I mean, this is the way. If this is the way you're going to treat me, I'm not going to let you determine how I'm going to react to it.
Yeah,
And that's the biggest thing for understanding how to become your own boss or be an
yeah,
entrepreneur is that you've got to have, I wouldn't say thick skin, but you've got to have a emotional quotient that it just rolls off your back. You just got to
you know what?
put up your sleeves, and I got to deal with it now.
Yeah, and I want to add to especially the women out there, and not all women are like this, and some men are like this. But as a woman and as somebody with a daughter, and I'm around a lot of women, and my niece is practically my daughter now because she lives with me and she's a teenager. I feel like women do need to hear this more, and men do it too. What you just described, thick skin, it has to roll off your back. I need you to know that that is something that must be developed. You don't just decide one day. So I'll give you an example. When I first started my entrepreneurial journey, people would just be like, "Why you had a good job? Why'd you leave?" And I would go home and cry and be like, nobody believes in me. I'm not kidding. I would cry. I'd call my mom and I would cry and be like, everybody thinks I messed up and maybe I did, but I just wasn't happy there. This was the thing that didn't waver though. I was still going to do it. No matter how I felt, I was still going to do it because I came too far. I'm still going to do it. Used to. I was telling my daughter and my niece about this the other day. I left Spirit in 2019. I don't know, 7, 8 years. I lost count in the early days. I'd say for like the first year, somebody not believing me or asking me questions a certain way would really affect me and my mood. and it would just get to me. Then I got brave enough to start like pitching to investors and stuff like that. And somebody would say something critical, I'd be like, no, that's crazy. I'm not interested. And I would just be bedridden for a week and cry. I'm not kidding, just like so hurt that I know they don't believe me and I know that I'm right. Which was true, but I had some development to do. So they did see that, right? And it wasn't that they didn't believe what I was saying technically. But then I got to a point where a rejection, I'll just call it a rejection to simplify, whether it be an investor, a politician, anything, a potential employee you're trying to recruit or whatever, it got to where, it would affect me for a day. I would be kind of distraught for a day. And then it got to where it was an hour. And then it got to it was 5 minutes. And now it's got to where I noticed it, but I don't have the energy to give to it. And I think I'm really close to being like, maybe I don't even notice it. But I need you to know in that 7, 8 year journey, that's what it took. That's when you start becoming a rock star entrepreneur. I'm not calling myself a rock star. Maybe I am a little bit.
No, man. I think that everybody has to go through that journey. I mean, it's hard for people, young folks, to understand that you don't learn this overnight. I mean, I had the opportunity, or I guess you say the negative opportunity, being right out of college, and then within a year getting laid off.
Yeah.
And so that was very detrimental. I could go into that and tell you what I did was very inexperienced.
Hmm.
Even with the fact that it was right around the holidays, and it was a war notice based on whether or not the government would continue the project,
Hmm.
and then it was very devastating.
Hmm.
But from that point to 2014 took me an understanding. I mean, that's basically almost 24 years before I realized that, I had to, it didn't take me long to figure it out. It still was like a half a day or so,
Yeah.
to the point now it's kind of like within a few minutes, I'm done. I'm done with it, and I move on to doesn't even like raise my temperature anymore.
Yeah, exactly. You're just
But
like, oh, we're
right.
not a fit. That's fine. You know, that's fine.
Yeah,
Doesn't
and
fit.
it goes back to what you're saying is about the imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
If you don't believe in yourself, the imposter syndrome could really undermine you rather quickly.
And I'm so sorry I keep interrupting you, but I want to
No,
add
go ahead.
something else for the people out there too. And I don't care what age you are, even if you don't believe in yourself. I tell my daughter and my nieces all of the time, write down your values. Okay. Write down what is important to you. Like, what are deal breakers? Okay. We're hearing a lot of stuff in the news right now about islands and files. Okay. For a lot of people, that's a deal breaker. Like, I'm not going to work for a company like that. What are the things that are absolute, like you would die for? And then what are like the nice to haves? Like, how much money do you want to make? Do you want to make enough to, support your family? Maybe you don't have kids, maybe you do, maybe you're a grandparent. What does that look like? Define it, and be comfortable with that lowest amount. That if you could do something that you really believed in, not yourself, forget about yourself for a minute, take yourself out of it. What are the values? Because a lot of people don't. They always say, I can't find my purpose. I'm using my sunglasses out of headband. They say I can't find my purpose. Well, I say find out your value. What are your values? I won't tolerate injustice with XYZ. I won't tolerate, maybe it's racism, sexism, misogyny, could be whatever. Maybe it's falsifying documents, or you know
Right.
bad quality control on engineering, whatever that looks like. What injustice or what is so important to you that it's something that you would die for or come really, really close to it, that you're like, nope, that's where I don't care how much money's involved, I'm walking away. Well, that's your line, okay? Define that as early as you possibly can, because best believe when time gets hard, things get really tempting. And you need to remember what your values are to guide you. Okay. So, say you don't believe in yourself, and I don't know, what's an example I can use? Maybe you have an idea for like a community project that can maybe provide free drinking water to the neighborhood for free, right? And it's going to require you to do a lot of things, and you have no idea how you're going to do it, but that's just something that's really important to you. So first, define what lines you will not cross and what ones are you okay to cross. Some of them aren't that big a deal, but you do need to define that one that's like absolutely not.
You want, yeah.
And then what you do is you start just reaching out and talking to people and saying, I want to do this. Will you help me? And some people are going to say no. That's going to hurt. Some people will be rude. They might even call you a name. That's fine. Was that on your deal breaker list? Was it on your line? Or were you okay with that one? Okay, so, and yes, you'll say, but sometimes you don't have to believe in yourself. You just have to keep going. Keep going and let your values drive you. So maybe a couple of people are rude and I'm just picturing you're going around your neighborhood knocking on doors and you're just saying, hey, I want to put this together. I need these supplies. Do you want to help? And you get a bunch of no's. People are like, that's never going to work. No city's going to shut you down. They're never going to go for that. It doesn't matter. It's not on your list. You keep going. And until you reach, and you take breaks, you take mental health breaks, you take a week if you need to feel sorry for yourself. Cry it out. It's valuable. It hurts. It really does hurt. We have egos. No matter how much we want to pretend we don't, we have egos. So get it out, purge it. That's what I'll say. Just purge it. And then get back to it, but come back to your values. And then while you're purging it, you're probably going to have thoughts about maybe I'll just go take a corporate job. Start looking at those companies, look at their values, look what they stand for, look what they've been sued for, things like that, and say, interesting, I could get up and keep going, or I come back to this line that I don't want to cross. Pretty much every time I go, at least for me, my own personal journey, when I go back, if I think about going back into corporate America, I come up against this line where my line is that I won't cross. So you don't even have to believe in yourself and you don't even have to have thick skin. You just have to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, along those lines too, you also have to remember to tell yourself, if something comes in front of you, you need to respond to it quickly. Anything you
like,
let
can you give me an example? Oh, I see what you're saying.
I mean, if you come across somebody who's very hostile to you, I mean, I've had those in a meeting. If you don't address the issue, especially as a manager or somebody who's a leader to those folks, if you don't address that incident, or somebody's being vocally inappropriate to somebody else, and you don't address that, you're more or less accepting it.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And if you don't address it, you're more or less blessing it. It's kind of like, if you don't address it, you bless it. It's a kind of
and furthermore, you become that person's victim as well, because they're going to see you as weak. And I was going to say earlier when we were talking about thick skin and believing in yourself, and I was saying, that's something that has to be developed. I was going to say, unless you're a narcissist, and it's like some kind of bully narcissist that just thinks they're great and better, life's, what is it, the greatest thing since sliced bread, which, we see those kinds of people thriving in corporate America. And those are, in the earlier days, those were the most difficult people for me to deal with. It was so scary to be like, don't talk to me like that. Now I'm like, oh, where they at? Where they at? I dare you. Like, and it's like now it's like they know me enough to know, like, don't mess with her. But in the early days, people will test you. So yeah, if you are in leadership, you have to call it out.
So along those lines, I mean, what's the difficulties in starting? I know you did something before that, and what was the evolution? Kind of getting off the subject, back to your journey to get you where you are today. And is there any influences from folks that you've met along the way that have really progressed your career or entrepreneurship, that's really made shifts, changes? I mean, it's always recognizing to do something different. It's always recognizing when to do the pivot. And understand that you're going down a dark hole and it's not getting you anywhere.
Yeah, I love this question. So I mentioned Lily and Awa, my coworkers at that former company. Lily showed me how to laser focus it and get what you want and kind of navigate the bureaucracy in the company. And Awa taught me, maybe on my second or third day, we clicked really well. Probably one of the smartest structural engineers in aerospace that I've ever met. So technical, taught me so much. Um, he said, he told me kind of quietly one day, he said, because I would kind of keep to myself. Sometimes there would be like some guys kind of coming by my cubicle and not blatantly being inappropriate, but testing the waters. And oh, I was so professional always. And he kind of noticed it. He said, "What were they doing over there?" I was like, mm-hmm. And he said, "Do you know them?" I said, "No." And he said, "Make friends." And I said, "With those guys?" And he said, "No, no, I'm not saying with those guys." He said, "This is a big company. And some people have a lot of friends. Find your people. Find the people that value what you value." So that whole value thing kind of comes back to that. And I was like, okay, well, so far you definitely resonate with me. We were always talking about our kids and just really professional, technical, and somebody that I aspired to be like. And then after that, the first person I have to say, Vicky. I feel like I'm giving a speech, but Vicky, shout out Vicky. Vicky was a mentor on a kind of shake things up. Uh, she was retiring, but she would inspire me and say things like, I wish I would have done things like that when I was your age. Um, but then when I left the company, Mike Hirschberg, first and foremost, Mike Hirschberg. In fact, I met him when I was still there, and I said, I'm going to be a free agent soon. Don't exactly know what I'm going to do, but I had already stalked him on YouTube. Mind you, I was furloughed, so I had nothing but time. So I was pretty much knew everybody in the industry. They just didn't know me. And Mike introduced me to PK. I haven't talked to PK in a while. And sorry, and Johnny Dew, who I still am. I just talked to Johnny a couple days ago, and then on that same day, I met Ben Marcus, who I also haven't talked to in a while. But Ben Marcus is the founder of AirMap. Now, this is back when I still worked at that job, but I was like, I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I was just finding people using that find your friends and your values method, finding people that I liked what I was seeing. And those are people that I want to learn from. And so then Ben,
Find your tribe.
yeah, find
Find
your
your
tribe.
tribe.
And they're all over the place. None of them were in Wichita. They were all over the place. But Ben met me, I think we met at a Starbucks, and that was like my first like investor pitch that I ever did, really. And I was like, it was like 15 minutes. I was like, I was so scared. And I was like, but I'm just an engineer. I don't have my MBA. And he was like, yeah, you don't need your MBA to be an entrepreneur. You just gotta get out there and keep doing it. And I was like, okay, will you mentor me? And he was like, I would love to. That relationship flourished, and he eventually introduced me to Martine Rothblatt, who that relationship flourished. And I've had Martine Rothblatt on the podcast, and which that led to me meeting Mikkel from Unither Bioelectronics. So all of those relationships go back to those early decisions. And then new people, and new people come on. And yes, 100%. Yes, relationships are. In fact, professors at college, even still, I still talk to. Shout out Jamie Jacob. Yes, a
You know
hundred
where they come
percent.
from. Right. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Make friends, and when you find, I have a saying. If you, I won't curse on the show, but I say in real life, if we were having a beer, I would say, if you f with me, I f with you. And that's pretty much my motto. I mean, I don't judge how you're living your life. I mean, as long as you're ethical, but if you like me and you can stand all of this jibber jabbish, then I like you too.
Yep. Well, just kind of wrapping this up, Danielle, and it's been a good discussion. But where do you see yourself? And what feelings or things you haven't done yet that you need to expand into?
Yeah, freaking, because my brain is so weird. I'm like, why do I do this to myself? But where I told you earlier, I go where I don't understand because my brain needs to understand. So now I'm gravitating to policy, lawmaking, and politics. And just understanding that whole way that works. I know, right? I never in a million years thought I would say that. Not saying I want to be a politician, but that's where I'm gravitating because as an engineer, we're taught one of the first things we learned in engineering college was a good engineer does not present their boss, assuming we're subordinates, a problem. They present them a solution to a problem. Yeah, so find the problem, but then figure out how you're going to solve it, and then go show like, can we afford to do this, or whatever. And especially in this day and time, everybody is complaining about things being this way or that way. But me, myself, and I cannot help but ask, but why is it this way? And what's the solution? Or maybe I can't fix everything, but how could we make it different? Just like how could we do aerospace better, change the culture, do it different? Well, how could we do politics different, you know?
You hit the nail on the head. I see the old ways of being done. I see the new startups, and you could talk, the advanced air mobility guys. They're doing it totally different. But then again, there's sometimes they're doing the same things and they're just spending their money and spinning their
Yeah,
wheels. It's like there
wastefully.
needs to be a new dynamic or new way of doing things that we're just not grasping onto. I don't know if it's happening in the boardrooms or if they're even addressing it or if they're just, it's just going
I
over
think
their
they've
head.
gotten, I think they've gotten, just generally speaking, right? I think legacy, well, I was just telling my mom this the other day. We were talking about life and things, the world. And I said, all empires fall. What goes up must come down, uh, just gravitationally, energetically speaking. And we've seen things be a certain way for a very long time. And I think the collective, I feel it. I feel it that people are just like, I've had it. It's just so different than it was. And I mean, companies are having a really hard time recruiting any decent talent. People know what their value is. They want to work remote. They want paid time off. They don't want to sit in, some cubicle and
Cubicle.
sit there and
Right.
push a button and teach some, I don't want to sound ageist, but teach somebody how to do Excel that's been sitting there for 30, 40 years. There is such a gap in legacy tech. I'm just going to say legacy, a blanket statement, because it's not just aerospace. It's across the board. And they've had access to tools before everybody else. Bought up the competitors and done this. Well, what did that do? It made them lazy. Where you take high sky, we have nothing, and we're fighting for our lives. I love the fact that both of us have crappy backgrounds. We're not fancy and flashy on our podcast. Another thing I think people are going to gravitate to is imperfection because it shows authenticity. I think people are turned off by polished at this point with all AI. They want to know, is it real? And so anyway, yeah, I think they recognize the problem, but I don't think they're able to change it. It's the innovator's dilemma, or I forget, the inventor's dilemma. um, they just weren't forced to evolve as companies.
Yeah. I mean, just let's just end it on that. But I think I don't know how, I mean, that's one of the things I've been trying to grapple with is how do I influence that? And it's just in talking with these companies and just saying, hey, let's just do it differently. Why do you need to create a massive organization at the start and spending all this money on why aren't you just consulting? Why aren't you just bringing people in when you need it? Why do you need somebody who's an expert in batteries or whatever and keeping on the
Hey, why
payroll for
can't you
the
just take apart something in your garage like the old days? Oh
yeah,
gosh,
exactly. I
you
mean, we
know,
could go on and on about that, but I
yeah.
appreciate your time, Danielle. We could go for another 45 minutes, but
I just
I
want to say
know.
one thing,
Yeah,
one
go ahead.
thing for you. I want to
Yeah,
say one thing for you, David. What you're doing is an act of the revolution. just being on this
Thank you.
podcast and doing this. So I mean, it's humongous. So you are doing the thing. You are doing the thing. I love it. Keep doing the thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And everybody stay tuned for the next episode. But thanks again, Danielle, and everybody have a good time.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Bye. Thanks for having
Bye.
me.